Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Allie. Today I'm going to be talking about Iphigenia in Aulis by Euripides. This is a Greek tragedy, part of the Trojan cycle about the Trojan War that takes place right before the Trojan War starts. This is part of my Greek literature personal curriculum that I'm doing this summer. This is the order that I'm going to be reading what I'm reading. This order was given to me by my friend who is about to graduate from Cornell studying classics, so I will be trusting what she says. So let's talk about Iphigenia. First off, I want to say I read it from this volume of Euripides plays, the Bacchae, and other plays. I don't know how to pronounce that. My bad. So it comes in this volume. This is translated by John Davy. This was, in my opinion, a very accessible translation. I think I want to, in the future, read another translation, another interpretation of it. But you get the same story either way. By the way, I will be talking fully about what happens in the plot. There will be no skirting around spoilers. It is a thousands-of-year-old play, and I just want to talk about everything that happens in it. So yeah, this play, written by Euripides, takes place before the Trojan War. Helen has been taken by Paris, and so the Greek army is coming together, but Agamemnon learns that in order to sail these ships to Troy to start the war, he has to sacrifice his daughter Iphigenia. I've heard it pronounced several different ways. In my head while I was reading it, I was pronouncing it Iphigenia, but I've also heard Iphigenia. I don't know. To each their own. What's the correct way of pronouncing it? Computer? How do you pronounce this shit?
Iphigenia.
Okay, that was the American pronunciation. What's the British pronunciation?
Iphigenia.
So the same, but with a British accent. Cool. Anyway, Agamemnon learns from Calchas that he has to sacrifice his daughter, Iphigenia, in order for the army to be able to sail to Troy. So he sends this letter to his wife, Clytemnestra, saying that Iphigenia is going to marry Achilles, so she has to bring her to Aulis. And after that is where we start the play. We start the play and Agamemnon is regretting his choices. Agamemnon sends his servant this kind of retraction letter and is like, stop them before they get here, so that way I don't have to kill my daughter. Menelaus, however, is Agamemnon's brother and Helen's husband. Menelaus is like, why are you stopping them from coming? You gotta kill your daughter to, be loyal to the country, telling Agamemnon that, he's being bad brother, bad king, bad soldier. This is where we kind of get introduced to this theme of, is your loyalty to your family or to the state? Specifically, for Agamemnon, Menelaus is representing the state or the opinions that you should be loyal to the state. Menelaus, instead of being biased towards his brother and his family and his niece, are biased towards the state because the whole war is because they're trying to save his wife. Anyway, so Menelaus intercedes this letter. The letter does not get sent. And then Iphigenia and Clytemnestra arrive in Aulis. So they arrive and they're all excited because they think Iphigenia is about to get married. And then there's a scene which is not supposed to be hilarious, but I found hilarious. Iphigenia is like, Dad, why haven't you guys sailed yet? Like, you guys have been here so long, like, why haven't you sailed, to go start the war? And Agamemnon's like, I have to, make a sacrifice before we go. And Iphigenia's like, oh, what is it? So while I'm doing this plot summary, by the way, I'm not going to be speaking intelligently. This is how my mind, interpreted it into, modern day terms. But Agamemnon's like, I have to make this sacrifice before I go. Iphigenia's like, oh, what is it? What do you have to sacrifice? And Agamemnon's kind of like, oh, don't worry about it, dear. Yeah, whatever. And then Achilles and Clytemnestra run into each other. And Clytemnestra is like, oh, you're about to be my son-in-law. And Achilles is like, what the fuck? No, I'm not. And she's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I got this letter. My daughter's gonna marry you. And then the old man comes and is like, y'all, I have tea. Agamemnon's about to kill your daughter. And Clytemnestra is obviously distraught because her daughter's about to be killed by her husband. And they've been lied to about it. They've been deceived into coming here. And Achilles is also pissed because he's like, you're not going to make me look the fool. So Achilles is like, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to guard your daughter. Let me go get my men. So he's off to go rally the troops. Then Clytemnestra tells Iphigenia about what's happening. Agamemnon comes back and he's like, hey girl, aren't you excited about, everything? And Clytemnestra's like, yeah, can you look me in the face and tell me what the fuck is going on? And she's like, Iphigenia, get out here. And Agamemnon's like, what? Like, why are y'all crying? Clytemnestra's like, well, we fucking know. what you have going on. And he's like, well, guys, I'm like really in a rock and a hard place. And Clytemnestra is standing her ground like, you're a fucking idiot. Why are you sacrificing your daughter? And then she goes into, we learn about their marriage. Agamemnon is just like a shit person all around. He stole her from her past husband and forced her to marry her, and then also killed her child that she had with that past husband. And it's at this point, I think we're seeing what we're introduced to as this tragedy for Agamemnon. We're seeing it really turn into this tragedy that's happening to the women, to Clytemnestra and Iphigenia. And so at this point, Clytemnestra and Iphigenia are both ripping Agamemnon a new one, talking about how selfish he is, how horrible it is that he would sacrifice his daughter like this, that he would kill his daughter like this and deceive them into coming here like this. And then Achilles comes back. He's like, Achilles is like, y'all change of plan. My men were furious at me. Like, they were the first ones to, come at me. He's like, I'm still down to protect your daughter, but they're all against me. Like, it is not looking good. At this point, Iphigenia comes forward and is like, I'm gonna sacrifice myself. Iphigenia is really such a brave character, and Agamemnon is such a fucking coward. Iphigenia decides, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna sacrifice myself. And there's this emotional scene between her and Clytemnestra. Iphigenia is telling Clytemnestra, don't grieve for me. Don't let the family grieve for me. Actually, before we get to that, she brings up this good point with Agamemnon about how she will be sacrificing herself and dying, in glory, just so that way they can go off to war and more men can die. So then we get that beautiful emotional scene between her and Clytemnestra. Iphigenia is like, do not grieve for me. Iphigenia repeatedly brings up how she loves her days in the sun and her life in the sun, and how now she's going to spend her days in Hades. It's really emotional. So then we see Iphigenia go away to sacrifice herself. Then we cut to another scene of Clytemnestra being greeted by a messenger. This messenger says, oh, you need to hear this news. When Iphigenia went to sacrifice herself, she was swept up to the gods and replaced by this deer. And Artemis said that they should sacrifice the deer instead of Iphigenia. So Iphigenia is not dead exactly, but she is among the gods. And then Clytemnestra is like, what? And then Agamemnon comes back and he's like, yeah, this is true. This is great news. And that's where the story ends. I am not familiar with this myth outside of this play. I want to read up on it some more. I know in the introduction notes in this, it talks about how in some versions of the myth that Artemis did save Iphigenia and Iphigenia did not get fully sacrificed. But again, Agamemnon is such a fucking coward that I'm like, did he sacrifice her and then coming back to his wife and telling her this, story just to make himself win her favor back? Because I don't put that past him. I do know there's another play by Euripides that takes place right where this play ends, and it's called Iphigenia Among the Taurens, so I think I'll read that in the near future. But that was my interpretation of the ending. I know there's some debate around the ending and whether Euripides actually wrote it himself or if it's a more sanitized version of the myth. One thing I really noticed in this play is the sacrifices made by the women. I don't know if this is a recurring theme on purpose from Euripides, because again, this was written in ancient Greece. But to me, this story really highlighted the sacrifices the women made, Iphigenia literally giving herself up and Clytemnestra willingly letting her daughter go to die because Iphigenia wanted to sacrifice herself. And also Clytemnestra's whole marriage thing where she had to submit to this husband and have children with him. And this husband who ultimately is a coward and is sacrificing his children and being deceitful to his wife and to his daughters. I touched on it a little earlier, but also the significance of human sacrifice is a big thing because this entire play is about a human sacrifice that's going to happen. You see the question that Iphigenia poses where it's, you're going to sacrifice me and it's supposed to be this death and glory just so that way you guys can sail across the sea and go fight in a war where even more men will die. And it's heartbreaking. It really calls into the question, human sacrifice, death by war, is it really, glory? So yeah, I had a really fun time with this play. I'm excited to read more from Euripides. I have a couple of plays that I'm going to read from him for this personal curriculum. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be posting more about everything that I read in my personal curriculums this summer. The next book I'm reading is for my Gothic personal curriculum, and that is The Mysteries of Udolpho by Anne Radcliffe. And the next book I'm reading for my Greek literature personal curriculum is The Iliad. So if you're interested in those and want to see everything I read in my personal curriculum and just more videos about books, make sure to subscribe. If you like this video, give it a like, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!